everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Andrew Lebeau, and I'm Vice President of Product Management for the core platform here at Dotmatics. And in today's webinar, we'll be covering what's new in the Dotmatics platform with our new version 6.1. In the first couple of slides, I'm going to summarize the key elements of the release, and then I'll dig into some more detail on some of those. I want to note that this webinar doesn't cover every new part of the product. So we're trying to cover the items we think are most interest to most customers, but there's others as well, and contact us. I'll have information at the end for the full set of new capabilities. So I want to highlight that with our version 6.1 release, it is what we're referring to as the start of a UX revolution for the Dotmatics platform. We have received feedback that people would like us to update the interfaces, the usability of the product. We quite understand the product's been out there for a little while now, so it's a timely reminder for us to do this work. And we think it's a really important focus for us. 6.1 is the start of that revolution. We'll highlight some changes to our inventory module. In fact, we have a whole new inventory module that I'll talk about. And also some really significant changes in our ELN form building and display capabilities that we refer to as our ELN forms canvas. I'll note that this is just the start of the revolution. I'll highlight the changes we have in this version, but there's a lot more to come in our next major version, which will be version 7 of the platform. Other key things we're going to highlight in the course of the webinar focus around these particular 3 areas. The first is around integrations. Dotmatics over the last couple of years has become part of a larger portfolio of products, including state-of-the-art bioinformatics applications such as SnapGene and both Geneious Prime and Geneious Biologics. We've already highlighted some initial integrations we've done with these products, the ability to register biological sequences from both SnapGene and Geneious Prime. And in today's webinar, I'll be announcing that we have added to this bidirectional flow of traffic with the ability to actually search to bioregister from these applications. We're also highlighting that we have added the ability to register to bioregister sequences from Geneious Biologics, the application for antibody discovery. And these are really important integrations because what they do is they allow us to enhance the verification of data, ability to find, access, interoperate, and reuse data. This is central to modern drug discovery. The ability for end users to remain in their personal productivity tools while interfacing with data that's centrally managed is really a key part of all drug discovery company initiatives. In the middle column here, we're focusing on some changes to our data discovery area for users of Dotmatics. This will mostly be through our browser application. And we will be talking today about how we are coalescing our Reaction Explorer tool, which was previously a separate module, into the browser application. And this allows for much more seamless interplay between our search and query interface with browser and the ability to search and build up synthetic pathways with Reaction Explorer. I'll talk about some enhancements around our API performance that allows us to do larger queries, and also highlight some richer visualization capabilities in Workspaces, which previously was also a separate module called Blueprint that we coalesced into browser in the 22.4 release. Really, the value here is around that seamless. I mean, these are more integrations essentially that allow more seamless exploration and querying, particularly focused on chemistry data in this particular case. And thirdly, on the right-hand side here, we have some enhancements around our ELN. The biggest enhancements are those form building enhancements that I talked about previously, and I'll go through in some detail. But there are also some nice improvements as well in terms of viewing chemical structures, some additional UX and UI enhancements, and other improvements around PDF utility and readability, and self-signing and countersigning workflows. And the key here really is just to enhance the deep science that we have within the software so that the software continues to facilitate science and not be a barrier to it. All right, so with that, let's dig in more detail on some of these key large areas of enhancements. First is going to be around latest inventory, this new inventory module. So in terms of terminology, because both modules will exist for some time as we gradually transition from the older one to the newer one, We're going to refer to them as legacy inventory for the previous version and latest inventory for the new one. And you can see here in a comparison of the interfaces, to the left is our legacy inventory module. And at one time, this was state of the art, but times move on and design and styling changes and application capabilities change. And so we need to be aware of this and make sure we're always innovating. And that has brought us to this latest inventory module where we have a much more modern looking, cleaner interface. This is style of modern web applications. And so we're adopting, of course, this style to provide a better user experience and build a foundation upon which we can add additional capabilities. One of the key changes with the latest inventory module or application is that it's an API-first design. And what this means is that much of the application logic, essentially what the inventory system does, is captured and maintained within that API, within those APIs. This is really important in modern web application development because it means that we're isolating that core logic that generally won't change that much over time, but can be expanded. We're isolating that from, for example, the UI. And so that our ability to continually refresh and keep the UI looking modern is much simpler in the future because we have that separation. It means that as technologies that we are currently using to support the system, as they continue to evolve and adapt and adopt, and people adopt new technologies, again, we can swap those out much more easily with this API-first approach. One of the key aspects or design aspects with our latest inventory module is really to help users, help guide users through and complete workflows. So in this case, we're highlighting the situation where a user is in a chemical registration application, wants to register a chemical entity, and at the same time add a sample of that to the inventory system. And so we have designed these integrated workflows between, in this case, our register product and the inventory application to guide the user through and allow them to complete those workflows very simply. The design paradigm is that users should always know where to go within the application to complete their workflow. And this is the driving principle, not only for the latest inventory, but you'll see it come up in our new ELN forms as well. So speaking of those forms, let's move ahead and take a look at those. So the objectives with the new forms, there are 5 in particular. The first is to support a wider array of screen resolutions and form factors. Science is a diverse activity these days. We work on our laptops, we work on tablets, on our phones, we interface with monitors, large monitors in labs. The software needs to be able to adapt to all those different form factors and screen resolutions. And so this is a big change with these new ELN forms. We've updated the styling of the existing forms to something that's more modern and refined. We retain functional parity with the current ELN forms, and we don't want to disrupt existing configurations. And I'll talk about the transition from the older forms to the new forms in a few slides' time. We wanted to introduce a more accessible form building experience. So better experience for the users of the forms, but also making building the forms simpler and easier. And finally, we want to create a foundation that we can continue to build on. In 6.1, these enhanced or new forms are only in the ELN. We have not changed browser forms, the query forms at this stage. That's for the future. So some key aspects of the content styling with these new forms are referred to as canvas. The tables have been restyled, although the functionality of the tables remains the same, as you can see on the screenshot. It's a cleaner, simple look for the tables. Our title and header text is larger so that it's more readable. And we have increased the contrast for the text color. There are best practices in the industry. We were already doing better than the best practices, but we've enhanced it even further to make readability of the text on the screen as simple as possible. And again, this is important because you're not always sitting directly in front of your laptop. You could be in a lab looking at a large monitor from some distance. And so that contrast is really important to be able to consume the information on the page. Content follows from, the content follows some set patterns. So we are trying to drive a little more consistency in the ELN forms. The buttons are always in the same place relative to the content. The layouts are more consistent. The colors and styling are more consistent. So overall, it's a better user experience, allowing users to become very familiar with the forms, and again, helping them to guide their way through and complete their workflows. One of the changes that I highlighted a little earlier was around the responsive nature of the forms now. So you can see in this little animation as the user contracts and expands the page, or equivalent to going from a monitor, a laptop, for example, to a tablet or a phone. You can see that the form adapts to the real estate available to it. So with the chemical reaction, you can see it grows or shrinks according to the size available for it. So it's always as large as possible, given the real estate, screen real estate. And you'll notice also that the table, when it's in its expanded form, the column headers are across the top in a more traditional style. But when there's less room for the table, you can see the column headers actually move to the left-hand side, again, allowing for the user to consume the information. So the tables are never working over the side of the page and unable for the user to access them. So that's the end user experience for the new forms, significantly enhanced from the previous forms. Now I want to spend a couple of slides talking about the Canvas builder. So this is building the forms. Now with Dotmatics, the Dotmatics platform, there's basically 3 stages to building ELN forms. First of all, you need to define the browser data source. So defining what data will be either captured if it's an ELN form or displayed in the case of a browser search and query form. So that's the data source. The second stage is to define the form elements. So how will the data be displayed in the forms? Again, whether they're being queried in the case of browser or data input in the case of the ELN. And the third phase is then laying out those forms onto those form elements onto the page. And it's that third stage that we are changing. We are not changing the browser and data sources. So if you have them already, they'll continue to work. We're not changing the form elements. They're the same. It's really that layout part. And that tends to be the part that's most frustrating, most difficult to achieve. Often takes a lot of time to get the layout done properly in the older style. And that's what we're changing for 6.1. We're making it much simpler to lay out the form elements. So it's a simple, intuitive point and click configuration tool. There's no code configuration to create and change the layout, but it does rely on having those form elements already defined. And so it has this, as you can see in the screen here, has this pretty simple layout. You simply create a set of row of these items, these form element holders, and they can be the whole width of the page, they can be partial width of the page, and that allows the user to then simply populate them with the available form items. So here's that layout being highlighted. The button bar block always sits at the top, and then we can create the rest of the blocks, full size, as I said, partial size, and split them up across the page, and then populate them with the form items. So with the 6.1 release, the canvas will be available in all environments out of the box. However, nothing will be changed if you're a customer who upgrades to 6.1. Nothing will happen automatically. Nothing will change automatically. The Canvas pages can coexist with the classic forms within a protocol, and so you will be able to adopt them at your own pace. So for example, you can take one ELN protocol, one page of that protocol, and then create an analogous page based on the new Canvas forms. Don't expose it to users at this time, get it all set up, maybe do some testing, and then you can flip from the older style to the new style. So the control of when you start to expose the use of the new forms is completely at your own choice. I will note that all Dotmatics solutions going forward will have the new Canvas forms out of the box for those experimental pages. Okay, so that's the major change in the ELN with these Canvas forms. I want to highlight just briefly a couple of additional smaller changes, but impactful changes. So the first is around working with PDFs. So two key changes here, small, as I said, but impactful. The first is that the table headers in a PDF table in a PDF document can be rotated, as you see in that upper screenshot there. Scientists tend to like to have lots of columns of data in their tables, and potentially sometimes with long table headers. These ones are fairly restrained. But you can see by rotating them 90 degrees, if that is the case, then it makes readability of the table much easier. And secondly, highlighted in the screenshot below, you can now control the size of the page margins for PDF output. So there are three options now: standard, moderate, and narrow, where standard matches what it's always been. If you select moderate, those margins will be a little smaller, and narrow, they'll be smaller again. So again, you have control over how you display both tables and all the content within your PDF pages. In the ELN, we've also added some countersigning options, and so you have now more options around self-signing and countersigning. And again, the idea here is just to streamline the workflow. Different organizations have different choices about how they do signing of ELN notebooks and notebook pages, and so this gives more control to the organizations to govern their IP protection how they see fit, and not create bottlenecks and having a lot of unsigned experiments. As part of the changes to the UX and the UI refresh, we have reworked the Open Tools dialog. So Open Tools is part of the Chem ELN. Users access it in order to view and select reagents for the chemical reactions. You can see the older style to the left, which was once state-of-the-art. You can see a much cleaner, refreshed view to the right. And so this will happen for all Open Tools dialogues once you upgrade to 6.1. And again, matching the clean styling of the Canvas forms. Okay, let's move on to some enhancements around screening, and in particular with respect to in-well analysis. And so this is where you have reading multiple values from each well from multi-well plates. The first enhancement I want to highlight is the ability to set an in-well validation rule that can, for wells that don't meet that validation setting, they will be colored red, as you can see in the screenshot here. So this is a way that you can very easily exclude from your visual analysis any wells that don't meet some preset criteria for quality of the results. And so a very nice, easy way you can exclude those when you're working with large plates with multiple values per plate. There's a lot of data, and you want to focus on the data that's most important to you. So an easy way to disregard results that are meaningless or ones that you don't want to look at. A second enhancement amongst others that can be accessed from our release notes. This one, again, a nice enhancement that will improve the analysis of in-well experimental data. The best way to highlight this is to focus on the two screenshots to the right. The upper one, you can see in both cases, we're looking at well D13. In the upper screenshot, if you focus on the larger chart to the right, you can see a pretty complex trace for this experiment. We see perhaps an initial rise, then a dip, followed by a second rise, and then a major dip, decrease in the middle part of the experiment, and then a gradual recovery or increase through the rest of the time. And you can see that in the upper screenshot, we are focused on the period from just under 2,000 to just over 3,000 seconds. So this whole experiment is just around 2 hours long. And you can see that a line, a simple model, a line model has been fit to the data in that region. So it's the region that's not in the gray shading. So we're focused on the white shaded area. And so for the first part of the analysis, the experimenter might want to focus on that area, fit a model to it, get those parameters, and then use that across the whole data set for comparison. But then depending on the treatment course, in the lower screenshot, you can see that now the experimenter is focused on the period from around 4,000 to 6,000 seconds. Again, a straight line model has been fit to the data. And so again, a comparison across all the data sets can be made for that time period. This can all be done now within a single experiment in the screening protocol, just with different layers, where previously you would have had to do this as two separate experiments with two different sets of data analysis. All right, moving further along, now I want to talk about our data discovery area. So the first topic I want to talk about is the coalescing or combining, integrating of Reaction Explorer into Browser. So Reaction Explorer is our application that was previously a separate module that allows a medicinal chemist to search across an ELN and devise or search and build up synthetic pathways. This application, which has been released 2 or 3 years ago, has been very successful. One of the key use cases for it is for the preparation of patents for filing. And we've had really some very positive feedback about the amount of time this application has saved in terms of patent building and patent creation. And so in order to further streamline and make this more available to more users, what we've done is combine Reaction Explorer into our browser module. So now it no longer exists as a separate module, it's just there. Any user of browser has access to it. And so I'm going to play at least the first part of a short movie clip here to highlight how that works. You can see in the screenshot that we're in browser here. And as I play the movie clip, you'll see now that the Reaction Explorer queries that might have been done previously can be accessed just like you would a normal browser query from the sidebar there. You can navigate between create a new one or access one that you've done previously. So here the user is going to select one of those. And the user then seamlessly drops straight into Reaction Explorer, can explore these previously found results. There are links through to the ELN page for each of these reactions that are part of this overall reaction scheme. And so if I just pause the movie at this point, you can see how seamlessly the user flowed from one application browser to a second application Reaction Explorer or second capability, and then would easily be able to access the ELN. So in this way, really the goal is to enhance workflows, allow scientists to flow through a complete workflow in the simplest way possible. A second movie clip here around Reaction Explorer, this one highlighting how easy it is to build new queries. So again, here we're starting with just a regular browser page with some results on it. You can see the structure box. We've added to the structure box here this share icon. So if I play the movie clip, you can see how that operates. User comes, hits that share button, and what that automatically does is take the chemical structure and creates a query to Reaction Explorer. So the user can very easily search there. In this case, because it's a fairly complex structure, there were no results found in this particular ELN database. So the user can quickly adjust that, make the structure a little simpler just to the core, and then perform another query, the query again. And there they've got a number of results across this ELN database. And from this, they can build up a synthetic pathway. So again, very easy integrated capabilities from browser to Reaction Explorer. The next section I'd like to talk about is some enhancements to browser Workspace. Just again, as I mentioned at the start, we previously had a module called Blueprint for medicinal chemistry analysis and visualization. This got combined into browser in our previous release, 22.4. And then, so we've made some further enhancements to it now. So I'll cover these on this page. These enhancements all around understanding science, the way science is really done in modern drug discovery companies. So these are second and third order effects, understanding how medicinal chemists really work, and ensuring that the software meets the needs of the demands of these scientists working in a modern drug discovery way. So the first enhancement I want to highlight is the extension of a number of categorical filters and colors. Previously, the limit was 15, it's now 100. So this is highlighted in the screenshot here. In this case, the scientist has done an R group decomposition, and they have from a typical data set that the scientists might be working with, and that creates more than 15 R groups. And so the ability, this extension of the number of categories, in this case we're using the R groups as the categories, allows the scientists to perform and not be limited in their analytical capabilities. The second enhancement is around support for custom log P or log D values that can be added. Out of the box, Dotmatics provides an X log P calculation, but we recognize that many customers have their own property calculator, or in fact will measure log P or log D. And so we now support the ability to add that data directly into browser workspaces. The third enhancement is around annotations on Workspace data sets that can be part of templates. So annotations are a critical part of capturing interpretations of scientists, for them to collaborate, to capture and collaborate and share those insights done through annotations. And it's really important because you're often using the same templated analysis on different data sets. And so now you can take those annotations and keep them as part of a template and apply it to a new or an extended data set without losing them. Again, really importantly, capturing those insights, capturing the interpretations, so that they're not lost as we add to a data set or work with a different data set. And finally, we've added capabilities to gracefully handle modifiers such as less than or greater than signs that are often part of property calculations or measurements. And so now, where normal other systems might not handle the sorting, for example, of modified numerical values, either they would treat them as non-numeric values, or maybe you would have to strip off the modifiers. We've made some enhancements now where you can combine, when you can work with those, you can split them out, the modified part out, you can then use them as categories or modifiers on charts, etc. So you don't lose that important information with modified measured values. Next part I want to talk about is reaction workflows. So some additional enhancements here. One of the key ones is around some performance enhancements. So this is where you might be performing a parallel synthesis and wanting to export the products of that analysis into an ELN experiment. Previously, you were limited to 100 products, I believe. This has now been increased to 1,000. Again, just to reflect the way real-world science is done in drug discovery companies today. The second enhancement I want to highlight is the ability to tag atoms and elemental, so you can control how they were treated as part of a combinatorial enumeration scheme. And so you can now have more specificity over those enumeration schemes, so you can create them faster and with not having to generate and then discard parts of the schemes. And thirdly is an enhancement or continued enhancement for our support for enhanced stereochemistry. Our reaction workflows now support stereo inversion reaction schemes. And then the final section that I want to have for this webinar is around integrations. I highlighted at the start of the webinar that we had previously announced the ability to register biological sequences from both SnapGene and Geneious Prime. We've now added the ability to also do that from Geneious Biologics. And in this video, I want to highlight the ability to to search to bioregister from, in this case, SnapGene. And so if I play this movie clip, we are now in SnapGene. We now have the ability to import bioregister sequences. In this first example, we're going to do it by ID or name. So the user starts typing, and you can see immediately gets results. The user is able to select that result and bring it into SnapGene. So this is pulled directly from bioregister very seamlessly. In the second example, we're going to a sequence search. So this is a BLAST search. So the user has a sequence query, selects to do the search. In this case, I believe there's just a single result. The user can then select that. They can see the alignment there, and then based on that, select and bring that into SnapGene. So really some nice improvements here. Now we have bidirectional exchange of information between SnapGene and also Geneious Prime with bioregister. Search from Geneious Prime is also being implemented. It is only keyword search at this time, not sequence search. We'll be looking to add that later. Okay, so that's covered the highlights of the 6.1 platform release. There are additional capabilities in the release. And so hopefully we've covered items of interest to you, but contact us for the full set of enhancements. If you'd like to learn more, please visit dotmatics.com, what's new, to stay on top of updates. We can learn about more the latest product news and releases. You can access on-demand product webinars, such as the one you're watching right now. And there is a dedicated section for our solutions innovations. If you're interested in updating to 6.1, please contact Dotmatics at info@dotmatics.com or your account representatives, and look out for more communications from our team. And with that, thank you. I'm really excited about the new capabilities of Dotmatics 6.1, and I hope that you will be too.